Hey folks, welcome back to Gaming Garbage. We'll take a look at games, chat about the gaming news in the industry, and of course, stream for fun. Let's just take a look at the audio real quick. I gotta start checking this. Sounds good so far. Okay, perfect. Yeah, let me just redo the intro over. Hey folks, welcome back to Gaming Garbage. We're going to take a look at games, chat about the gaming news in the industry, and of course, stream for fun. Today we're taking a look at Gaming News Consolidated. This is July 7th through the 13th, and we got quite a bit for you. We're going to be going over some games with how they're doing so far, including like Suicide Squad, First Descendant, and a game we hadn't even heard of. We're also going to be talking about the Japanese government might be getting involved with this Assassin's Creed Shadows, so that might be really interesting. We also had GamePass increase its pricing. We also have EA changing some things with the Apex Battlepass, which is just insane. We got some other games too that are closing. Or ending, and we found out about a huge DLC that I think would have been amazing, but we'll never get to see because of live service and more. So thanks for tuning in, folks. You can always find me over at Gaming Garbage 22 over at YouTube. Don't forget Don't Tread on Thee on Twitch, and also our Discord server, link in the description below, not just to chat mingle with those on the channel, but also to find folks to play with regardless of gamer platform. And I gotta say, too, it's cool. Like, I'm starting to get two different audiences now between YouTube and Twitch. And that's kind of interesting. So, I do have my chat running, by the way. So, let's see. Let's go ahead and get started. Hopefully, you guys are doing good. Man, it's been hot. We're beating the heat. Hopefully, you guys are, too. So, Suicide Squad. It's actually going to be free on PC for Prime Days, which I think is crazy because... Again, this was a game that was very expensive. We know it was over $200 million. That's just the amount of money that they lost. And they're hoping to get more people in the game, probably to buy more microtransactions. Roughly right now, there's about 300 people playing. And we got to find out, too, that Season 3 is coming out and that folks are going to be able to play Mrs. Freeze. So this was kind of... hinted at or leaked or whatever, but like the pictures that we got leaked were perfect. I mean, they were exactly what was actually going to be in the game. They have kind of like a roadmap, which is, again, pretty worthless. We are going to get a different environment, which is just a reskin of the city. Or just part of the city. But yeah, very much like the Joker. Just, again, like Mrs. Freeze does not look like in the animated series. Not even close. I mean, at least like Batman, Superman does in the game, but yeah, Mrs. Freeze doesn't look right. The Joker also doesn't look right. And I know these are from like different multiverse whatevers, they're different alternative realities. But again, it's just not meeting the expectations of the players, and that's why they're not playing the game. And so the fact that they're making it free for Prime Days is just hilarious. And again, I don't think it's really going to do anything. Yeah, I mean, this is a done game. They have committed to doing a total of 4 seasons, so we'll see. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. We'll see if they even go any further than that. But there's quite a few boss fights, and we're finding out too that the boss fight this time looks like it's going to be like the Flash and Batman put together this time, as if they're trying to just do something else, do something better. I don't know. Like, this is just such a train wreck. It's just a total disaster. So, yeah, it's disappointing. This is not the game we wanted from Rocksteady. Next, let's talk about the First Descendant. So it's already kind of trailing off in players. Now, I know this normally happens with live service. Okay, we've seen this with every single live service and with every single game that's ever been out there, generally speaking. And it's just because, people play, not everyone's going to enjoy the game and whatever. But it seems to be curtailing a little faster than what we normally see for a lot of games. And, they started with pretty solid numbers of a little over 200,000. That was pretty steady, actually, through the weekend during launch. And then we got to see it peak a little bit higher to about 264K. But now we're at about 180, And we're into the weekend already with Friday night. And it did tick up a little bit for Friday night than what, of course, the weekdays were. And we generally get that for most games. More people that, have to work and whatever, they come online for the weekend and they start playing. And again, the Descendant has done very good. It's had 10 million unique players, which is crazy. Like X-Defiant, which is also a free-to-play game, has had 11 million unique players. So a lot of people have tried this game for sure. But again, I don't think a lot of people are really sticking around because we have X-Defiant with 750,000 concurrent players monthly, and so far with X-Defiant, we're looking at about 200,000. So it's quite a drastic number. And then looking at the peak to where it is now, with the first day into the second weekend, it's roughly lost about 32% of its player base already in just a little under 2 weeks. And it still has mixed reviews on Steam. And Season 1 is coming at the end of August. And so we have a long ways to wait, actually. But with the new season, we're going to get a new Descendant, Luna. We're going to get a new Colossus to fight, which is like a boss. We're going to get a new ultimate weapon, and a new skin. And so we're going to be getting those. But again, it's like for 2 months, it's kind of a long ways to wait. And honestly, we're not getting very much. I think there is, too, also a different map piece that we're going to be getting. A new region to play. I would hope so. There are quite a few regions, but people are blowing through these regions actually pretty quickly. And people are definitely churning up, even getting through the grind fairly quickly. So one issue that I definitely do see is, again, content. Most seasons, they're going to be 60 days. And then, we're going to be getting one new map, hopefully. Or one new region, because otherwise, if this is just a grind fest of just repeating missions over and over again, it's going to be pretty brutal. And the content that we have already, in order to get to the next sector or the next region, you have to level up and replay quite a few missions and go up a few more levels before you can actually unlock that region. And so, yeah, again, this is very much reminiscent of what I played with Outriders, which was released in 2021, and I actually really enjoyed that. Because you just paid for your game, there wasn't really any microtransactions, and you just ground your way through the game. And this one is a free-to-play model, which is nice, but again, the grind just seems indefinitely a lot more heavy. Even though it has the same mechanics, they just feel extended to me. And then too, the monetization is pretty insane. And I've had some people rebuttal this, but honestly, I don't feel like the game is really going to have legs. I think the bulk of the player base is going to get tired of this. And I've seen comments like that too. And honestly, what are your thoughts? What do you think? Is, waiting 2 months for a new season to come out just to get a few more things to grind for? Is that going to be worth waiting for? And we got plenty of other games coming out this year and next year. And are people still going to be playing this? I don't know. But we have about 7 weeks left until the next season. And yeah, just the repetitive missions and the bosses, that does tend to get old. And I think it'll ultimately kill the game, is that it's just going to be too grindy. And there's not going to be new content quick enough to actually bring to the table. Now, most live service games have about 6 weeks. And this is 8 or 9-ish weeks until people actually get new content, and that's quite a bit longer. But will we get another Destiny where it kind of gets into a player base and they continue to play and they continue to invest and put money into it? Or is this more going to be like a Suicide Squad where it's just going to burn up pretty quickly? So we'll see. What do you guys think? Comment below. Next, let's talk about EA charging more for their Battle Pass for Apex Legends. Now, Apex Legends has been around for a while, I think since like 2018, somewhere in there. And I used to play some. It got tiring after about a year or so. And I wanted to play some other stuff. But now they're taking the Battle Pass, and now they're breaking it in half for 2 passes. Now they're splitting it. And so, but the problem is that you still got to pay for each Battle Pass now. Even though it's the same Battle Pass split into 2, you have to pay for each piece, effectively doubling the cost of the Battle Pass, which is frustrating. So the original, you would pay for it. Okay, you'd get 120 levels or 110, something like that. And again, you could play through it. But now we're getting half of that, and you have to pay for each half at the same price as the original. And also, you can't use in-game currency anymore to buy the Battle Pass. You have to use real money. And then now we're having 3 different tiers. We're having a free battle pass, we're having a premium, and then a premium plus. Now this has already been like that. That doesn't change. It's not like they've added another tier or whatever, but they are changing the benefits that you get, so they're cutting out more of the fluff. To be fair, they're also adding kind of more premium content, quote unquote, that most of us would enjoy or think that looks cool or what we would want to grind for. So that's nice. They're actually doing that, and they're also increasing the amount of like points and rewards that you get as you go through the pass, so you can buy more stuff. But again, you have to spend real money in order to do this. And who else has had made changes like this? Well, we've seen this in Call of Duty, bringing back Black Cell and earning less COD coins with your Battle Pass. You used to be able to get a good chunk of your Battle Pass paid, but, over the years, they've just slowly been dialing that back. We also have Overwatch 2, where they've had a battle pass that's now also got a free, a premium, and an ultimate, and they've extended the grind on that too for, of course, their skins and stuff, just to get people to play more, to eventually buy more. We've also seen Tekken add a battle pass, which now they have a free and a premium one as well. They never used to. People just cried about that one, and I would too. It's frustrating to see. We also had Mortal Kombat. Even though they don't have a battle pass, they've been increasing their monetization to the point to where it's just so incredibly expensive. Things are more broken up or no longer bundled necessarily. And it's really just to benefit the monetization for the company and just have the players pay more for stuff that's really not going to matter or that they're not really going to use after a little while, or maybe not even really use at all. Again, this is how this microtransactions work, folks. We've also had Halo Infinite, where now we're, paying for a battle pass. We've started with seasons with Halo 5, and then with Halo Infinite, they have just continued to dwindle down what we actually get with the money that we pay. And so now they're even charging you for basic colors. Like $5 a color, like for red and blue and green. It's just like, are you kidding me? That's just ridiculous. We've also seen with Battlefield in 2042, they've now also added a battle pass. The next one, I'm sure, will have a battle pass. We'll cover that here on the channel as soon as it shows up on EA Play. But it's so frustrating, and so they have a free one and now a premium one as well. We've also seen with Rainbow Six Siege, they've, on top of everything else, microtransactions, bundles, and a battle pass, they now have a subscription service. And why? Why? Like, we're getting to a point where we are just monetizing the crap out of literally everything. And then don't even get me started on sports games. So, again, to be fair, they've worked on, EA has worked on cutting out some of the fluff, making some of the more content actually usable instead of like having spray paints and that kind of stuff. They're just kind of removing some of that, which is nice, but it still doesn't justify the cost of what they're doing. And again, regardless of what company we look at, whether it's a publisher, developer, a console maker, whatever, or something for PC, everybody is trying to find ways to make enough money or to make more money. And I don't necessarily think it's just to make more money. I think it's that they have to. Because if we're actually looking at a lot of their earnings, some of their earnings are really good, but not all of their games are successful. And we're seeing record layoffs this year compared to last year. And last year it was more layoffs than in 22. And so on and so forth. We've seen more studio closures. We've seen more cancellations for stuff. We've continued to see delays in AAA games. And just the industry is not healthy right now. And I think more of these companies, while I don't like it, are actually trying to just make enough money to keep things going or keep things sustainable instead of actually just being greedy. Some of them certainly are, but I think a lot of companies are under the knife, and we can see that in their earnings reports. So next, let's talk about GamePass. This was a pretty big one this week. Of course, nobody's happy about this, not me either. But let's go over the price changes and what's changing. So we have Xbox Live or Game Pass Core. They're the same thing. It's going from $60 to $75. That's a 25% increase with no changes to the service. You're not getting anything extra. You're not getting anything taken away. It's just a price increase. Next, we're having Console going to be going to Standard. And Standard is console is $11 right now, where you do get day one. and now it's going to be turning into standard in September for $15 a month instead of $11. So we're going from 11 to 15. This is a 36% increase, and standard is not going to have day one anymore. It is going to have instead multiplayer, so you're actually going to be paying for that. Next, we're going to have ultimate, which is going to be $17 going to $20. This is an 18% increase. No changes to the service. Next is PC. This is going to be $10 going to $12. This is a 20% increase. Again, no changes to the service. And Ultimate is still going to have EA Play, and I believe PC will as well. So you're actually having two services there. Now the console folks, they can stick with the service as long as they've never canceled. But again, console includes day one, and I don't believe that's going to change unless Xbox forces the change for those that aren't purposefully keeping their service going. But I think it will eventually change and eventually become standard anyway. But console right now, and if you want to continue to stack that, you can still get day one games, and a lot of games that are coming are going to be single player or have single player available. So you don't need online play necessarily. Standard will include a multiplayer this time. Again, I want to reiterate that, but it's not going to have day one. It's also not going to have cloud gaming either. So that's actually going to be removed. For those that have core, it's incredibly frustrating because all you're doing is just seeing the price go up and nothing being added in value. And a 25% increase in cost is pretty expensive. Let me get my water here. Next to, if standard is by far probably the worst because you're losing day one, and your only option to get day one now is either have Ultimate on console or get it on PC. And if you want to continue to have day one, well, now you're going from basically $11 up to $20 a month, and that's an 82% increase from the old console version to now the new Ultimate version. Because again, standard isn't going to have day one. These changes take effect on July 10th. So they literally took effect the day they announced it, which is kind of crappy, and that's for new members. For those that have already been paying for these, the effects take place on September 12th, which is when standard is going to be launched and console won't exist anymore, technically. Again, you can still stack that, I believe, and continue to have console so that you can keep your day one at least for about another year. And you'll be able to stack for up to 13 months. And after that, you're not going to be able to do that. Everything is going to convert to the new price. So interestingly, though, I had to add this because I haven't heard anyone else talk about this yet. And while it doesn't make me happier about the price change, it is something that I understand. And so we haven't had a price increase for multiplayer like for Xbox Live or GamePass Core for 14 years now. Think about that. 2010 was the last increase we had from, I think, $50 to $60, which, again, people didn't like that very much. But yeah, from 2010 to 2024, inflation has gone up 44%. And taking a look at that, we haven't had a price increase since, at least for multiplayer aspect on Xbox. Now, again, I don't like the price increase, but for everything to stay the exact same price forever is pretty ridiculous because inflation is here to stay, because that's how the governments want to do it in every country out there. Inflation is a way to cheat, and that's for another video. But, this time multiplayer has gone up only 25%. So they're justified, on average, taking it up to 44%, but they didn't do that, and I'm thankful for that. Sony also didn't go all the way up to 44% either when they made changes last year. They went from $60 to $80, and that's a 33% increase. So again, while I don't enjoy their increase, it could have been worse. And again, I'm not excited about this. It's really going to hurt for a lot of people, again, that have Xbox Live Core, because most people that have it, they're going to continue to have it so they can play online. There are going to be some games, of course, where you don't have to have Xbox Live, and a lot of those are going to be like Fortnite, Apex, and Warzone. And there's some other ones out there too, but generally speaking, if you're playing with your buddies on certain games, you're actually still going to need Game Pass Core to play multiplayer, and they know that. And so they're raising that price, and that sucks. And it's the same thing Sony did. I'm sure eventually we'll see the same thing with Nintendo with their multiplayer. Even though it's extremely cheap, I'm sure it'll eventually go up to like $5 a month or something like that in the future. So, ultimately the price increases were inevitable. We've seen it with other companies. We've seen everybody just struggle with inflation, including small companies and mega companies too. And at $20 a month, they better keep the quality high for Ultimate. Otherwise, Ultimate's not worth having. And some are already unsubscribing. And so they're either downgrading their service or they're just canceling it altogether. And it really depends on what people can afford and how much they really use the service. But again, if you're busy and life's getting busier and you're having to work a lot and you're not really playing with friends, is it really worth keeping? If you're not really playing a lot of games with Ultimate, should you keep it? And again, Shepard and I are going to be having a discussion, actually, a nice debate on whether Game Pass is actually still worth it or not. So I've been having the service for about 12 months, and I have my views, and he's got his too on why this sucks, and hopefully you guys will join us for that. We'll have it on Twitch, of course, but we'll also be posting that on YouTube as well. So stay tuned for that. Next, let's talk about Synced, a game that probably none of us have heard of. Well, it's actually shutting down after a year. It officially started in September, and now it's going to be ending in September, a year later. And this was actually a game on multiple platforms like PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox, and it was cross-platform, and you had the ability to play solo with some NPCs for your squad, or actually have your friends play with you in a squad. It had a focus of squad mechanics. There was different abilities. It was an open world environment. You had different missions and other stuff to do in the game. And it was like a looter shooter, right? Okay, again, it was a free-to-play one, futuristic, but it just really didn't get very far. Most of us, again, haven't really heard this. I haven't even seen any ads for it or anything. But the peak players on Steam was only about 10,000. And today, it's in the 20s. So, in less than a year, it's basically a flippin' dead game. For the last 6 months plus, it's been 1,000 players or less. And, yeah, people just weren't interested or never heard about it. And so with the service ending for the game and the servers being taken offline, they've already stopped new accounts from being created as of July 9th, per their announcement. But I feel like, we already have too many games that are the same. And again, this is a game that I've never heard of, and most of us probably haven't heard of this game either. But even though it was on multiple platforms and cross-platform, it just never made the rounds on anything, which sucks. As far as we know, there aren't going to be any layoffs, which is nice. This is made by Next Studios and ultimately published and owned by Tencent. But Tencent, I think, is the one that's pulling the plug. It's just not making any money. There's nobody playing it. Why keep it going, right? Except for those, 23 people that are playing yesterday. But yeah, this just sucks. So we can't play new accounts. You'll be able to continue to play until September. But yeah, eventually they're just going to switch those servers off and no refunds. And that'll be the end of that. So again, whatever money you spent is just sucked up into the void when those servers go offline. Now let's talk about Assassin's Creed Shadows. So it's going to be getting some more flack. And so what for? Well, apparently they stole some art on one of the designs that they have for the flag in the game. Somebody was able to point it out and see that, and they're like, hey, that's actually my stuff. They didn't ask me. And so here we have Ubisoft actually taking something that isn't theirs, putting it in a AAA game where they're going to make still even, hundreds of thousands or millions off of this game. They'll make millions, I'm sure. No doubt in my mind, maybe even tens of millions. But yeah, this is just really scummy. So far, Ubisoft has released a statement saying that they've removed this design. But if you pre-ordered the super fancy COVID edition, this design is still going to be put in with like the art style of the box or whatever that you're going to be getting for your collector's edition. And so they can't undo that. They're not willing to undo that. But yeah, it's just incredibly unfair. Whoever's great idea that was to take someone else's art offline and just be like, yeah, that's ours. It's just incredibly scummy. It's like what happened. It's like what happened with Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection, of just some of this stuff being used that was made by third party, and they took it as theirs and used it in their product. And again, that was just a mess. And they should do a better job of keeping track of that, folks. They really should. Something else too, with all of the stuff surrounding Assassin's Creed Shadows and people not liking the alterations to Japanese history, including Yuzuki. Looks like we finally have a politician involved. Satoshi Hamada. He's actually a legislator, and he's being made aware of what's going on, and he's not super excited about this. And he's actually looking at maybe bringing this up to the legislature to see what they can do. And one of the things they could do is just not allow Assassin's Creed Shadows to be sold in their country. I don't think a lot of Japanese folks would buy it anyway. But yeah, it's incredibly frustrating. And it's amazing to see how a lot of this coverage really isn't being made or being focused on by any main media in the West. But there's definitely quite a bit of it out there. And so I'm just trying to bring this forward. It's just like Ubisoft is being kind of crappy with what they're doing with Assassin's Creed. And the Japanese are pissed off. I guess, of course, it's not all Japanese, but there's quite a few channels out there. But starting to involve a politician, this could end up turning bad for Ubisoft. So I'll keep you guys updated if there's anything there. Next, let's talk about Exoprimal. Well, they will no longer be getting any new updates, according to Capcom. The servers will continue to keep running, but they're not going to be really creating any more content after a certain point. Because, again, there's just not a ton of people playing, and it's no longer really going to be supported after a year. They're just, again, going to let it continue to run, but eventually they're going to take the servers offline as well. And so I shared this actually on the channel with Exoprimal when it first came out, and I stopped right at the screen, the main screen, because I didn't want to make a third-party login. And so it wasn't just me complaining about this. I already have to have an account just to be able to play games on my console, or to play on my PC or whatever, okay, right? We already have to have an account. And to have another account just to play one particular game, I'm getting old and I'm having less time, and it's just, I don't want to have to deal with that. And so I didn't even play it. And then, too, some people were saying that, the game really didn't get going until like 15 or 20 hours in, which, again, is kind of ridiculous. Quite the grindy game. And it did take a risk with kind of like PvP for it, where you're dealing with NPCs and you're dealing with another team, which is definitely interesting. I did want to try it for sure, but again, it's like, not if I have to, create something. Plus, there's other stuff I'd like to play. It's just not a priority. So peak on Steam was 5,000 players. Currently, there's 40 players. So again, this is just another game that's not worth supporting. Capcom is recognizing this. And, they'll keep the servers running probably for a while, but eventually they'll probably take these offline too. This does also remind me of Payday 3. Again, this was another game that you had to have a login for. And, again, it's something I didn't do. I showed that here on the channel as well. A lot of people didn't like it that I just showed the screen. It was like, yep, third-party login, and I'm not doing it. A lot of people didn't like that. And I do understand if people felt like it was a waste of their time, but I did at least want to show people, it's like, look, you actually got to log in. And that sucks. I just want to turn on my console, log into my profile, play games. And continuing to have to do this is just frustrating. Payday 3, though, did have a peak of 78,000 players on Steam, and currently they have 600. So again, they've had a really high drop-off. They've had issues with servers. They've had issues with gameplay. They've had bugs. What people got to see with, like, the Act Man, when he got to kind of play test it and show some of the footage, didn't really translate super well into what other people were experiencing. It was way buggier, and while their experience wasn't perfect, it was definitely a little better than what the majority of people were engaging with for the first couple of weeks. Into the team that did Payday 3 just couldn't seem to get their stuff together, and the game just continued to be a mess. I don't know what state it's in now, but still not, honestly, probably not very good. There's more people still playing Payday 2 instead, and people have just jumped back to that. So Yeah. Payday 3, is it also going to last? Probably not. Eventually, that's going to disappear too. So let's move on. Let's see. Netflix is canceling Horizon Zero Dawn. So this was going to be a series based off of Horizon game, and they're canceling it because of the showrunner of the series. This is a person, basically like an executive producer, that helps kind of orchestrate and put things together for a TV show, specifically. And there's just been chronic misconduct by him, and so they're just canceling the show. They don't think they can really keep it going. They're probably burning into their budget as well. So we don't know exactly where the kibosh is coming from. But they'd have to find a new showrunner. They'd kind of have to start over a little bit. They'd have to probably do some reshoots maybe. But yeah, it's just had nothing but problems. And yeah, Netflix is just saying, nope, we're done. So they still technically have, I guess, the licensing for a period of time for Horizon. So they might come back later and try to do something. But for right now, we're not going to have a TV series. And with how most of the gaming adaptations are going, I'm actually happy about this. Because with how Horizons is now, it's fun, it's a well-known IP, and we enjoy it for what it is. But what we don't want is, again, for these movies and shows to have alternatives or to not really follow necessarily the lore super well, like Twisted Metal. Frick that thing. Like, that is ridiculous. I'm not saying it can't be fun in another universe, or that it doesn't have good acting or whatever, or interesting parts to it. But again, in my opinion, Twisted Metal is not Twisted Metal. And it just sucks when they do stuff like that. So, yeah, with the money that Netflix has spent already, that's just money down the drain, and they're just canceling that. So, it sucks for people that are also part of the set because, well, their paycheck isn't going to be as big as maybe they thought it would be. And what they were going to star in is no longer the case. And maybe, too, some people are thinking, well, hey, if this show does pretty good, maybe I can actually get into other stuff. And, well, yeah, that's not happening for anybody. Next, boy, we got to talk about a DLC that could have been. And, man, this would have been cool. So with Grand Theft Auto 5, we all know who Trevor is. Well, he was actually going to have his own standalone James Bond DLC where we were going to get to play him and play through another story with him, you know, what they called the James Bond experience. And boy, this would have been so incredibly fun for those of you that know Trevor from GTA 5. But they canceled it. And the reason is because they were taking a look at how successful GTA Online has been and just decided, nah, the DLC isn't going to make as much money. So they canceled it. They were about halfway through development, and that work has just gone to the wind, which is horrible because something like this would be so good. And again, it's stories that make the characters, that make the IPs, and it's impossible to do that when you're just focused on live service all the time. Okay? The Finals, it doesn't have a story. Exoprimal doesn't really have a story. The First Descendant, it's got a really weak story. And it's like, live service does not make good storytelling most of the time. And I would even say Destiny didn't start that way. Destiny had good story. It was fun. It was engaging. The worlds were fun to explore. The gunplay was good. The graphics and the cinematics and just the world building that they did. And then when it started going more live service, that's when it just started falling apart, unfortunately. And the monetization just got to a whole new degree where it's like, holy frick, I can't play this anymore. This is ridiculous. And so, again, it's just like, you know, this DLC is just not going to be. We're never going to see it. And it made me think, too, how many DLCs have we passed up on? How many have been canceled because of live service? And two, how many stories have been passed up because of live service shooters? Or they've simply decided to do something else. And I just think it's insane how, you know, we've already had a lot of canceled games. We know there's been canceled DLCs too. All in the name of live service, because live service makes more money. And I think we need to think about this too as a community. Because, you know, we've had Suicide Squad, which is more live service. We've had Rainbow Six Siege. We've had other canceled games, all because of money. And, We do know that GTA 6 will have at least one single-player DLC that we'll get after launch at some point. Like, they'll continue to make it whatever. But I think it's really important to remember that we've lost a lot of potential in the gaming industry. We've lost great possible character development and storytelling, all just for companies to make more money. And if you buy a little bit of microtransactions, whatever, but if you're pumping in a bunch, you're part of the reason why we didn't get this DLC. Like, for those of you that bought into GTA Online and the subscription service and the shark cards and stuff, you're part of the reason why we didn't even get that DLC. Why we'll never get that DLC. And it sucks. All of us would have loved to have had that. GTA 5 has sold over 160 million copies. And they would have sold tens of millions of DLC of Trevor James Bond. I'm serious. They would have made a ton of money out of that. But again, it's not enough compared to the live service. And so it's just not going to happen. That really sucks. Finally, we got some optics on Hellblade 2. Now, this is kind of convoluted. We got actual physical sales, digital sales, what we got to see on different charts, different countries, etc., how many played on GamePass. So we're going to try to paint this picture for you. But again, this was a game that launched in May, and a lot of people didn't really enjoy it, myself included. It didn't really seem to fit. And this is, again, 7 years after the original. And I haven't played the original yet. I definitely want to. But yeah, just playing Hellblade 2, it's like, what in the world is this? Like, people are praising the crap out of this IP, and for $50, this game sucks. I'm serious. So what we do know is that it ranked 37th that month in physical and digital sales on Xbox. We also know, actually, I think it was number 37 overall. We know it also ranked 12th on Game Pass, and it was right behind Fallout 76, but it was also ahead of Jedi Survivor, Apex Legends, and Forza Horizon 5. In the UK, it didn't even make the top 100 in sales. So, it didn't sell very well in the UK. It sold better in the United States. And the viewership on Twitch, it lost 90% after 24 hours. Because again, if the game is only, 5 to 7 hours long, well, a lot of streamers probably played through the entire game, beat the game, and then that's it. So, very quick flash in the pan, not a very bright one at that, in my opinion. And it was just too short of a game. And whether you played it or watched it, the experience was probably roughly the same. Because the gameplay itself wasn't super immersive, and there really wasn't a benefit to actually playing the game versus just watching. It'd roughly be about the same time. You just hold the thumbstick and just run or jog for 80% of the game, which was incredibly frustrating. You got to see some visuals, but again, if you're watching it for the first time on stream, you're getting kind of the same wonder and reaction that you would get, generally speaking, from just playing. So, again, yeah, this just did not do very good. The next game from Ninja Theory, I think, really needs to actually sell well, or actually bring people to Game Pass. Because they've had 2 games now that just haven't done very well. Bleeding Edge was in 2020. Most of us don't even remember that game, but it is made by them. And then now we have Hellblade 2, and that just hasn't done great. So, a lot of criticism, and so I think Ninja Theory really needs to make a good one this time. And because if they don't, they can just turn into another Tango Gameworks. And even if you're Tango Gameworks at Xbox, you're not safe. Because I think ultimately at this point Microsoft is making the decisions. And lately, we haven't had very good games from Microsoft, generally speaking. We've had Redfall, we've had Hellblade 2, we've had Bleeding Edge, we've had Halo Infinite. Okay, Starfield was a disappointment for a lot of us. I mean, yeah, they need to actually start putting some great games on the table, or Xbox is going to be having a problem with Microsoft, the parent company. You know what I mean? So is Phil Spencer. His job might even be on the chopping block. We'll have to see. So lastly, let's talk about something that is somewhat related to games, and this is more related to physical media. And so let's talk about this. Redbox will be no more. Now, for those that don't know what Redbox is, basically it's a kiosk with physical games and DVDs and Blu-rays in it. And basically you rent it for the night or a couple of nights, and then you come back to the kiosk and return it, and it says, hey, thank you, come again, all that good stuff. Well, a few years ago, they actually quit having games in there, because again, they just weren't selling or people were just taking them for cheap. But they still have DVDs and they still have Blu-rays in there. But I've been noticing that, this year they haven't really been swapping out the inventory very well, which is kind of crazy. And then, too, we've had one across my street, but they yarded all of that stuff out of there. And I asked the manager at the 7-Eleven, and he said, well, they're not paying their rent. Like, they're not paying the rent to have our little, the kiosk in our little space. And, since they weren't going to pay, we just told them, hey, just go ahead and come and take your stuff. And so, yeah, I knew they weren't doing very well, but now they're not just in Chapter 11. They've actually been forced into Chapter 7, bankruptcy, which is liquidation. So they've been in business for 22 years. They have 24,000 kiosks nationwide, and they have over 1,000 employees. All of those employees are immediately basically going to be laid off. They're going to, deal with the kiosks, and then once that's done, they're all gone. And this sucks. And the whole reason is they went from Chapter 11 to Chapter 7 is, well, they were trying to restructure in Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The judge ultimately looked at their balance sheet and said, look, you guys have $970 million in debt, and you only have $414 million in assets. Like, that's less than 50% of what you actually need. You're not going to make it. And they're not even paying their employees right now. And so, because of all of this, the judge decided, look, you guys are going to be in Chapter 7 liquidation, and it's got to start now. And so, they're done. All the employees are going to be laid off when all of the work is finished. And this is just another example that physical media won't last. Even, we've lost Blockbuster, we lost Hollywood, we lost Game Crazy. We've lost some stores, right? And we even lost a big store that makes physical movies. They folded up last year. And yeah, they're done too. Again, it was like liquidation. And how my wife and I got to find out last year was the company that makes these physical media for movies and TV shows and stuff. We were talking to someone in the electronics department at Fred Meyer and found out, like, yeah, we got all of this freight for Thanksgiving and Christmas, but we had to send it all back because they're going bankrupt. They're done. And so that's just one company that, again, makes physical media, and they're done as a company. They're not making enough. And so I do ultimately think that physical is going to completely disappear. And, that is how it is. I'll buy physical media for the particular type that I want, like Liza P. or Starfield or like Top Gun Maverick. Okay, I'm going to buy physical media that I want. But eventually it's not going to be around anymore, folks. You guys got to realize that. It is limited. It's on life support, and it won't last forever. So Shepard and I, too, just to do some housekeeping for the channel, Shepard and I are going to be doing a debate pretty soon. We're going to be posting it. My goal is posting it by Sunday or Monday for you guys to listen to. And it's going to be more of a podcast, but we're going to be talking about whether GamePass is worth it or not. And this includes talking about the price changes and stuff and what they offer as a service. Also, my wife and I, we're doing something together. We're doing short reviews. And we've been talking, too, back and forth about actually doing and continuing on with It Takes Two. We started that gameplay quite a while ago. And too, just sharing tips about our marriage and stuff. But, boy, it has been busy. Our schedules have not really been the same between work and kids and everything else. And it's been kind of tough to get on the same page to actually play for about an hour and a half or something like that. But yeah, we're going to look at revisiting that too. So we got our first short review up. We did Coral Island, and basically short reviews are where my wife plays certain games, different ones than I do, and we're going to share a review with you. She'll play 15 to 30 hours or so. She'll write out bullet points. I'll share the bullet points and talk about the game, and then she actually plays it on screen for you guys, so you get the best of both worlds. And so, yeah, go ahead and stay tuned for that. And the whole reason we're doing this is just to kind of broaden the range of reviews that we can share on the channel. But because ultimately, we want you guys to know what you're buying and not get screwed and feel like you got shafted, because that's definitely been feeling like it's been happening a lot lately, regardless of whether it's been on PC or on Xbox or on PlayStation. So, yeah, go ahead and give us some feedback on our first review. Tell us how we can improve, what we could do better. Again, this is kind of a new experience for us, and we got both of us interacting at the same time. And so, yeah, go ahead and give us some feedback to let us know what you think. And with that, folks, hopefully you guys are doing good. Continue to beat the heat. Be smart about it, and we'll see you guys on the next one.